Hello, welcome to the Canyons Are Calling podcast. It's Cheryl, your host for the show. So, I have tried to record this intro a few times and it has been really hard. I lost my dog and my best friend a week ago, and that caused a delay in this episode coming out. I noticed that she wasn't feeling well the same day that my cord came. If you follow me on Facebook, you know that I had left my cord in the hotel room when I was visiting family at Christmas. And the same day that my cord came, my dog showed signs that her cancer was back and she was declining pretty fast. And so I took last weekend to just be with her. I tried to record a couple of intros a couple times and then I forgot a couple things. And so I wanted to re-record them. And then Monday morning, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I found her passed away, which was beautiful that I was able to say goodbye and thank you, and that I didn't have to take her into the vet. But it's also really sad because she's been my best friend for 11 years. And those of you who know me know that we went a lot of places together. And she was just an amazing adventure dog. This last summer, I knew that she was declining. I had found out that she got cancer last February. And so, yeah, losing her is really hard. And I'm just going to take February at least off of the podcast and just kind of process her. And, I'm documenting like what she taught me over the 12 years. And, I'm just going to take some time. But also with that, I'm going to make some changes to the podcast. Because of the Patreon support, I decided to take a leap and sign up for a different editing software. And so I'm paying for a subscription, and it should make my editing easier on my end. I really appreciate my Patreons and the support that they give me. I only have a handful. I have 12. But I really appreciate each and every one of them. It's because of them that I'm able to support different rendezvous and buy editing software and like the new sound equipment that I got and things like that. So thank you, Patreons. I'm really hoping that with this new software, I will be able to edit easier and more thoroughly. And then also it's going to supposedly give me little clips that I can do little, suspense, like coming up soon episode kind of things. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to spend the next couple of weeks learning that new program. And then I'm also starting to interview for my next season, and I'll be interviewing through my new system. So that'll be really cool. If you have any ideas for the show, or you have anyone that you think I should reach out to, now is the perfect time. I am trying to record throughout the winter and early spring so that once summer hits and everybody's busy, I already have a backlog of episodes ready to go. And I'm hoping that they'll be more consistently back onto like the first of the month like they had been in the past. So yeah, if you have any ideas for the show, please reach out to me. It's thecanyonsarecalling@gmail.com, and I will get you on the show. You can also reach out on Facebook and Instagram, but Gmail is probably the best way, or Facebook. Also, if you appreciate these stories and you feel that they could have brought any value to your life and you would like to support the show, that is patreon.com/thecanyonsarecalling. And with that, we also do a monthly canyon call where we get together the first of the month and we just chat about canyons. Sometimes I have guests on there and we chat about either their business or different canyons that they've been through, things that they've learned, whatever. So If you are interested in joining us for that, that is patreon.com/The Canyons Are Calling. If you want to do just a one-time donation, I also have Venmo and PayPal, and I have links to all of that in the show notes. Okay, I think that's everything on my end. Our story today is an amazing story about two young guys, Braxton Adams and Wesley Beck, and they were inspired by a previous episode on here by Buzz Burrell and the Zion trifecta. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back in the episodes and look up the Zion trifecta with Buzz Burrell. But that inspired Wes and Braxton to do the same thing. They really wanted to try to beat Buzz and his group because they didn't make it in 24 hours. They were like 25, barely. And so Wes and his group thought maybe we can do this. And so they tried to get the collab permits, but they weren't able to. And so they were only able to do Imlay and Heaps. But just Imlay and Heaps in one day is an incredible feat. Like, I would do one of those canyons in the amount of time it took them to do both of those canyons. Because if you've hiked with me, you know it's like just slowly with Shirley. But I like to take my time, soak in the pictures. I also don't thrive going uphill. These guys are like marathon runners and like really trained for this. So don't take my word for it. I am really inspired by people that do these amazing things because it's something that I would never attempt just because I like to go slow. So anyway, they talk about the fun things that they learned in their trip and the things that they encountered that were unexpected, and it helped them get ready to gear up to try to do the full Imlay Heaps and collab with another friend of theirs, hopefully this spring. So we'll see how that happens. If you'd like to follow along with them, I do have links for them in the show notes. And I'm going to stop rambling on because you guys have been waiting for this episode for way long enough. So enjoy the show. Okay, so today we are here with Braxton Adams and Wesley Beck. And we are here to talk about their Jiahiad experience. What is a Jiahiad?
So Jiahiad stands for just Imlay and Heaps in a day. For people who don't know, Heaps and Imlay are like the two biggest canyons in Zion that people look at as like, I don't know, a lot of people might see them as like these monster canyons because they take a long time and have a lot of obstacles. But we did them both in a day.
Probably two of the most technical canyons in Zion, I would say.
Yeah.
That's something I would never attempt, so I'm just blown away that you guys did that. Anyway, if we can just start, first of all, introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about how you got into the outdoors and how you got into canyoneering, and then we'll build up into why you decided to do the Jiahiad. So Wesley, let's start with you.
Yeah. So I'm actually from Southern Utah. This is definitely home for me. And I grew up in the outdoors, so doing everything under the sun outdoors that you can think of, really. It's really natural to me, and I love it. It's what I'm really passionate about. And so I got into canyoneering specifically probably about 2 years ago. And I think I've been canyoneering with Braxton for about 1.5 years now. And he's kind of helped me progress in difficulty, and we've done bigger canyons together up until kind of this Jiahiad experience just a couple weeks ago, which is something that I don't think we were ever really planning for, but it worked out because of all the preparation and experiences we've had in the past to be able to build up to this big feat. And so, awesome. Yeah, I love canyoneering, especially Zion. I think that Zion is the best national park out there. I might be a little bit biased though, but it's so fun just having it in my backyard. And,
I totally agree.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was your first canyon?
It was Pine Creek.
Oh, nice.
Yep, classic. Yeah.
That's a great first.
Yeah, it was.
Very cool. Okay, Braxton, a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Gilbert, Arizona, and my family is, I'd say they're like really active and spend a lot of time outdoors, but like growing up, I really didn't do anything remotely close to like canyoneering. Like we'd go camping and four-wheeling every now and then. That was kind of the gist of it. But later on, when I moved to college, I went to SUU in Cedar City. So that was like my first time living in southern Utah. And I met a bunch of people who like would go climbing, or they'd take us like down to St. George and we'd like go rappelling or things like that. And finally, I had a friend like offer to take me canyoneering. My first canyon was Birch Hollow, and I was pretty much like immediately hooked after that. I like went and bought all of my own gear to like start canyoneering with, and definitely it was like a big learning process. I think this is a sport that like a lot of people get into it and they're like climbers or they've done stuff like that before, and like they're just excited to do more, and sometimes like don't necessarily know what they're doing when they start. And I was definitely one of those, but over time like I met a lot of more experienced people and just kind of fell in love with the sport and the community and started going a lot more. Made some awesome friends like Wes who would tag along and go on these super cool trips, so it's been really fun.
Awesome. Did you guys meet at SUU?
We did.
Yeah.
Do we want to just jump into the adventure of the Jiahiad, or any amazing adventures before that?
I don't know. I think it's really important to note, like, we didn't just like hear about Heaps and Imlay and think it would be like a cool thing to do them both in a day. Like, this did take a lot of preparation, even though maybe the planning came up pretty abruptly for us. We had both done both Heaps and full Imlay at least once. I've done Heaps. This would have been my third time, and my second time through full Imlay with multiple runs through Sneak as well. So we definitely were like well experienced with the canyons we were going into before attempting to do both in a single day.
Right.
Yeah. And I think we had talked about the full trifecta multiple times this last summer of 2023, and it was always kind of just like some crazy idea that some crazy people attempted and that we would never even push into the realm of that idea. And then I think it was like the beginning of September, and Braxton called me up. He said, "Wes, are you crazy?" I'm like, "Of course I'm crazy." He's like, "All right, let's send the full trifecta." And so it did happen quite suddenly, but I think we had many experiences before. Just be ready for that once we did kind of start to think logistically about it.
Okay, so were you going to try for the whole trifecta, and it ended up just being Imlay and Heaps?
Yes, that was the original plan, was to do the full trifecta. We wanted to be able to do it in under 24 hours, kind of be the first to pave that path. And we found out pretty soon after we started preparing that they opened up the Kolob Creek Dam. We're into Kolob Creek Canyon.
Okay.
So there was like 35 CFS blowing through there, and definitely was. And then they weren't issuing permits anymore. And so we then had all this preparation. We had talked to a lot of people and had a lot of support behind us. And so, I don't know, I felt a little bit defeated on this original big plan. And then I was like, wait a minute, we could still do something so amazing. So we just dropped Kolob Creek Canyon and just decided to stick with Imlay and Heaps. And see how fast we could run that. And then after that, just see how we feel if we want to move on to the next step.
Yeah, that's a good progression, I think. What do you guys feel? Do you feel like you...
Absolutely, yeah. I finished Imlay.
Hell yeah.
I remember driving in the truck like through Zion Canyon, and I looked back at Braxton, and I was like, I am never going to do that again. That was so hard, and I'm so glad that we started with just these two, because I don't think I would have had it in me to do another canyon after that, especially in the conditions that we were running. So I think it was the perfect first step.
Okay.
I think one thing that's important to note is like, because I don't know, we were so gung-ho about this, and we had run like Heaps and Imlay a few times this year already, and we were like, yeah, we got this. And then we got the news that Kolob was not going to work out. So we quickly threw together Jiahiad, but it was like mid-November. Like, we did this on November 11th, it was like between 10 and 20 degrees at the top when we started. The potholes were nowhere near full, and it was freezing like the whole day. So basically, like pretty much the worst conditions we could have done it in.
Right.
We went and did it anyways. But so yeah, at the end, like both of us, like we like collapsed in the parking lot. We were like ready to be done. But like not even like, it was like 3 or 4 days later, we had like a Friendsgiving where we met up and we were talking about it, and we were like, yeah, we're gonna do the trifecta next year. So I think in better conditions as well, we have a pretty good chance. So
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what the preparation was like to get you prepared to do this big of a task.
well, like we said before, I think a key part of it was like we were really familiar with the canyons. We had run them multiple times before. And not only that, but before attempting this, we also went through like a few additional times to just really like think through each step, and kind of scout out, see what like conditions were like, see where we'd be running, what we'd be doing to like be efficient when we were in the canyons. And then we also reached out to a lot of people who were super helpful and gave us really good advice, particularly Tom. We reached out to him when we had this idea and kind of asked him to like help support us and give us any advice. And I drove up and met him at his house. We just kind of talked about the plan, and there were a few things where he was like, oh, you should, do this differently, or this might be a better idea. And it was very, very helpful in the planning process to have Tom there. So
Another thing that was a little bit of a challenge, but we knew was necessary in preparation, was preparing for the cold. We ran it in late September. At least we ran full Imlay in late September, and all the potholes were full. And we were feeling pretty confident that in a month it wouldn't be low enough to make it difficult. But we knew it was going to be cold, and so we're both very familiar in running canyons in wetsuits, but had never had an experience with dry suits. And so that was a question we kind of went back and forth on for a while, and then decided, yeah, it'd be really dumb to drop into Heaps without a dry suit at this time of the year, especially not knowing the conditions. I don't think there had been a trip report in the past month at least. Of Heaps. And so that was another decision that we made on preparing for the warmth, a lot of layers underneath the dry suit, and then a lot of did you have a 10 mil for Imlay?
yeah, so through full Imlay, I mean, I had 10 mil in like my torso. My arms and legs still would have been like 4, but
Okay. Yeah, and I was 7, so.
Why did you not do dry suits through Imlay also?
mostly because we had run it more recently, and there were trip reports from recently where people had done it in 7 mil and been fine.
Okay.
To be fair, they weren't doing it in the dark like we were. But yeah, we decided that would be easier because we already had our own gear that we could use, and we needed 2 separate sets of gear for each canyon. So it made sense to use our own gear for Imlay and then rent dry suits for Heaps.
All right.
We didn't want to lug any gear around, so we had 2
Had
separate
we not seen like that conditions report from literally like the same week where people did it in 7 mil, we probably would have opted to do dry suits for both.
Dry suits are kind of nice, but when they fail hard. So I
Yeah.
understand your concern with that for sure, especially with it being so cold.
One thing we found out pretty quick too in Heaps was that dry suits are like terrible to run in. Like you feel like a sumo wrestler, like trying to like sprint, you know? It's terrible.
Yeah, there's no mobility anywhere. Like everything is so stiff because you've got layers on layers underneath, and then
Right.
your big heavy wetsuit, and then or dry suit, and then because we rented them, they gave us like this layer on top of it to protect it. And I was like, we got, like I think I had like 6 layers on at least, and so like
I'm
climbing out of a
imagining-
pothole.
I'm imagining that kid from that Christmas movie. Where it's just
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly it.
can't even move.
Like, I can't put down my arms.
I kind of feel that way in a 7 mil wetsuit too, though. I don't know.
Yeah, it's thick.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. In addition, we knew we'd be running it quick, and so we set kind of our emergency times a little bit closer than we would as if we were just like normally walking it. And so the group that was supporting us, we had some family, and then Tanner Jensen, an amazing friend, was kind of there at the end of Heaps and then at the end of Imlay just to ensure that we were getting out on time. We also had a Garmin to be able to communicate with him, just our whereabouts. And then
preparing for this, like Wes and I were like running with our packs on and things like that. And I realized pretty quick that mine was like making me chafe, like along my hip. And I brought it up to Tom, and he was like, "Oh, well, it's because you're not wearing an Imlay pack." so I tried out one of his packs, and it didn't like rub the same. So yeah, it was a little more comfy. We ended up. Tom suggested that we should, rather than running up the hill to Imlay with our packs on, we actually took 2 packs from the top, going down from Lava Point. We carried our packs for both Heaps and Imlay, and we stashed the Imlay ones at Potato Hollow.
Oh, right.
But that meant that we literally, so we took the quick release straps from the packs, and the one in back, we basically crossed it over like the torso of the pack in front and clipped them down like in an X. So the one pack was basically hanging off the back of the other. So we looked like hunchbacks basically, right? And we had like 70 pounds of gear
so heavy,
on our backs, and just 2 backpacks. And we ran the first like 5.5 miles down to Potato Hollow with 2 packs on, which was really comical, honestly. Like we were goofing around in the parking lot. Like it felt so weird. Like it was just pulling back on you, so you kind of had to like lean forward to run the whole time.
Right.
But,
did you take any pictures of that? That would be cool to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we got lots of video from the whole thing. Because part of what prompted this was we had a friend from SUU who is a film student and wanted to do like a mini documentary. So
cool.
She actually got a lot of like footage and things at the ends, and we carried GoPros through. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I definitely think those first 5 miles were the most physically taxing, and I was glad it was the very beginning, because it was a lot of weight. I mean, I was like, wow, I just tripled my weight in 2 seconds putting that massive bag on. If I lean back even a little bit, I'm like going with it. And so it was so much weight, we weren't even really able to like pick up our feet and run or jump. So it was more like very long, quick strides. It was the most awkward running. All the muscles like tensed. I was like, wow, we're setting like the speed walking record here. But we had to do that for a little over 5 miles on the West Rim Trail. And then we dropped our Imlay pack, and I have never felt so light in my life. I was like, wow, 35 pounds is the best thing ever.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you've ever done Heaps before, you know that like all the like going down to Potato Hollow, it's pretty downhill. But like as soon as you get past that, there's like these 2 really big hills that you have to go up and over before getting down to the ridge. And as soon as we took those packs off, we felt like super light, like we were jumping around and stuff with only 1 pack. But we got to the top of those hills, and I was like, I was gonna throw up everywhere. Like I felt so sick. And Wes, like, of course, started recording because he thought I was going to. And then, it didn't come. It passed. But yeah, we kept running, and then Wes like face planted into the ground after a little bit. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I ate it pretty hard. No way to soften the fall with the pack, but. Yeah, we dropped into Heaps, and we're very surprised how low the potholes were. It definitely made it difficult. Like a single pothole, which would take 30 seconds to swim over, took like 20 minutes to get out of at one point.
Just like hooking out of everything.
What?
Were you hooking and pot shotting out of everything?
Actually, we didn't hook or pot shot out of anything in Heaps. We did in Imlay quite a lot, but Heaps, we were able to manage it with the two of us.
Just partner assists and stuff like that.
Yeah. There were a few that I think if I had been going at like a regular pace, it probably would have been easier to use pot shots. But there were some, for example, there's one in the first section. I don't know how to describe it. It's like this it's probably like the widest pothole in Heaps. So we got down to it. Yeah. And it was like, there was nothing but water behind us, so pot shots were pretty much out unless we climbed back a ways.
Right.
And it was too far to throw a pack. So it kind of came down to like Wes got in there and tried to get out, and there were like no hook holes. So nothing was working. And eventually we decided that we both needed to get in to be able to get up and out of there. So we basically did it with Wes like swimming into my pack while I kind of kneeled on it and like beach whaled up and over the lip out of the pothole. And that was definitely like the hardest one we did, I think, in Heaps. It took us quite a while to figure it out. And at that point we were also being like very cautious, making sure we weren't like in a position where we couldn't turn back or anything like that. So, but yeah, it was harder, for sure, trying to move fast in like such cold water and with the potholes in pretty low conditions. So
it was super fun though. Heaps was actually quite enjoyable, I think. Just moving so efficiently through the canyon, and I've never been in a canyon during sunrise, but we were, and like the way it lit up the green room or like the iron room within the canyon was amazing. I was blown away.
Oh my god!
I was like, maybe we could just not do Jiahiad and just sit in this room.
Right, we just stay here.
So good.
See, that's why I would never attempt a Jiahiad, because I need to spend like 8 hours in every spot. It takes me forever. I just like to be in the canyon. But how long did it take you guys to do Heaps alone?
So we started at 2:55 a.m. and got done at 10:50 a.m. So 7 hours and 55 minutes.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Any other obstacles?
It was honestly like such a thrill, like when we got to the bottom and realized the time, because I feel like we were a little discouraged that it would take longer because of how hard the conditions ended up being. But like it was a good time. I loved every second of Heaps, actually. It was like a really cool experience.
Did you guys have breakdowns of like, we have to be here by this time, here by this time, here by this time? And you were like consciously keeping track of that the whole time?
Yeah, our plan was to be, at the canyon head by 6 a.m. And we were like right on time. Like, man, we're killing it. And then we dropped in. We said, actually, this probably isn't going to happen today. Because our overall goal was to be in and out in 7 hours. So popping out at 10 a.m. on the dot. And we were coming out about 10:50-ish, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah, we were about an hour behind, more or less. But given the conditions, I think it was amazing that we were able to do it that fast.
Right. But I was just gonna say, it was like, that's being slowed down by potholes only 50 minutes is incredible. That's really good work. It's super.
Yeah. I don't know if we would. Thank you so much. I don't think we would have continued if we wouldn't have been able to get out of there in under 8 hours.
Okay.
But,
we were kind of thinking if we didn't make it out of Heaps by noon, Imlay was out for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, we got to the bottom, and honestly, throughout Heaps, like there were multiple times where I was just thinking like, oh, if I can just get to the bottom, like Wes and I can just stop, we don't have to do full Jiahiad today. It's okay. The conditions just aren't right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We got to the top of the sequence, and like immediately as Wes went over the edge, like our families were down there waiting, and they started like cheering for us, and
Yeah.
I just like had so much energy all of a sudden. I was like, hey, we got this. Like, we're going to do this today. And that definitely kept me going. So
That's awesome. Did they hike up to the top of Imlay with you?
no.
You guys ran. You're like, we're out of here. See ya.
Yeah, so they all kind of were waiting with little jobs when we came out of Heaps, and so my mom had like a bottle of like pickle juice.
Okay.
And like, yeah, other people like handing us food and things like that, and we were pulling off our dry suits, and then we had Naomi bring us just like a liter of water for a small pack that we could then run up the West Rim Trail.
Nice.
And just because we knew that we would lose the most time with our transitions, right? Transitioning into Heaps, transitioning out of Heaps, transitioning into Imlay. Just that takes a lot of time to be taking stuff off, putting it back on.
Right. Were they able to pull your rope for you and like pack that out so you just could bail?
Yeah, our families like took our stuff for us once we were down, which was very helpful. Because at that point we just like we needed to eat and we needed to leave, so because we were kind of fighting against the clock.
But could they like do all the rope work while you were eating and recovering?
So yeah, I mean that's when like our friend Tanner really was like an angel for this whole thing. He came and hung out with our families all day and like kind of like coordinated all the logistics from the bottom, like of showing them where to meet us and things like that. Cool. So having Tanner there helped a lot. He like helped with all of that.
Very awesome. Okay, so what did Imlay look like?
Well, first I think the difficult thing about it was the whole approach. I mean, we ran from the end of Heaps, so it's what's that little guy called? Remind me, Braxton.
The Emerald Pools Trail.
Yeah. Thank you. We were at Upper Emerald Pools, and then we skirted down that trail, and it was a holiday, and so we were kind of battling hordes of people, like please move, like running
on your left,
on your left. Everyone's probably like these jerks, and then we like start busting it up to scouts, lookouts. And I just remember thinking, like, they all probably think I'm such a dork going up to, like, Angel's Landing with a helmet on. Because we still had our helmets on and stuff.
Okay, cool.
But anyways, we get there, and then we take a left and go all the way up to the West Rim. And Braxton was killing it on the hill. He was just long strides. I think we were doing, like, 15-minute miles on the way up. It was a lot of elevation. But I was, like, just getting pulled behind. Like, can I keep up with this? And cramping a little bit, and so I don't know. That was pretty brutal to do after Heaps.
Right.
I don't think I really expected it to be that difficult, and it was.
I mean, it's a really steep trail. It takes me forever.
Wes doesn't give himself enough credit because like once we got to Cabin Spring, we kind of like switched spots. Like he was maybe struggling a little bit on the way up, but he was right behind me the whole way. But like after that, my legs just like started seizing, and like I felt like I was like running / walking on like stilts. Like I couldn't like bend my legs, you know. But we kept going as fast as we could, like through the Telephone Canyon area and down back to Potato Hollow. And when we got to that last hill, I was kind of like hobbling down, and Wes ran ahead and grabbed our packs, and we got to the top of Imlay and like suited up, ate some food. And once we got into the top of like the drop-in of Full Imlay, at the bottom there was like this wall of ice, and like the water it had like a thin like crust on it, so we had to like punch through the ice everywhere that we walked, and it was like sharp and like cutting into our thighs and stuff. So that was like super cold, and we were in wetsuits now, so it was like we definitely felt that.
Right.
But I think one of the best decisions we made though is we got to the head of Heaps, and right before dropping in, we kind of just decided to eat as much as we could and drink as much as we could and take like a 15-20 minute break, just so we felt more prepared, like giving our body what it needed before dropping into Imlay.
Right.
But it definitely was a big shock to see, wow, there is so much ice here, and this is very cold. and we were all slipping on rappel. Like the walls were just pure ice, and so that made the first hour or so pretty difficult punching through ice. It was like probably a solid half inch of ice, which faded as we got lower into the canyon.
Did you have ice Traxton with you, or were you not prepared for ice?
We were. I mean, honestly, I don't know if that would have really helped because the ice was mostly like in the water, you know. So we were just trying to like break through the ice and kind of clear a path and get down. But I think like it kind of, once we got to the bottom of the 165 foot wrap, kind of like midway down Full Imlay, after that the ice mostly cleared up. It was like it was a lot better after that.
Were the potholes full or empty there?
They were so empty.
Yep.
Dang.
It was worse than Heaps. We went, here we go again. But I think
at this point, it was like in the dark too, because we got to the crossroads of Imlay like at sunset, and then this was kind of like our last call. Like, do we keep going? Do we stop? And I don't think either of us really had the energy to like hike out the approach, like the sneak route either. So we were like, we're just gonna punch through Imlay. You know, we can do this.
We moved very well through the whole upper Imlay though before dropping into the narrow section, the final sections, and so I think that definitely was comforting and like, wow, we're actually still moving really fast even though we've been going at this for so long and are pretty tired right now. So
yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like, I don't know, normally canyoneers hear like the idea of like FKTs or moving fast is like that's really kind of looked down on or like not a great idea, and I agree with that. Like it can definitely be unsafe, especially like if you're not really like checking yourself and like well prepared. And like moving fast through Imlay, like how efficient we were, like leapfrogging and like switching, just our teamwork and the constant like movement. It was like a really cool experience because even though I was totally exhausted, I felt like I was just in this like total like flow state, as like Wes has put it. It was really easy to kind of drown out like the pain and like tiredness and just focus on like the next thing and keep moving. And even though we were like at this point kind of like trapped in a canyon, like it just felt so free. It was a really incredible experience, honestly, like kind of tackling each obstacle, and that was the only thing we had to think about.
And it sounds like you guys just have a great, you work well as a team together, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that was key. I mean, I definitely trust Braxton with my life, and I hope he trusts his with mine.
Right?
Right? But you
kind of be a team of two and take on something like that.
It was just like the two of us out there, and this huge canyon.
Yeah.
And
what was your total time on Imlay?
We got in there at like 2:45, I think, was when we dropped in. And then I'm pretty sure we didn't like look at our watches when we got to the Narrows or anything, but we got to the Narrows at probably around 8:45, so 6 hours. And then it took us until about 10:15 to get back to Temple of Sinawaba.
So we moved very quickly through Imlay, mostly because we knew the temps were dropping very quickly, and we just did not want to be stuck in there at night. And so we dropped into the dark section in the dark.
How was
and
that?
That was I think that was the most challenging part of the entire day.
Yeah.
Because the potholes were very low. We had to hook out of 4 or 5 of them at least, and it was grueling. I mean, we were exhausted this time. The temperatures were freezing. I had torn some big holes into my neoprene gloves, and so I was just hands were kaput by then. And so we knew that as long as we could get to the Narrows, then we were fine, right? So I remember looking over the Narrows and like finally being like, all right, we made it. I can give up on like being fast. Like we've made it through this safely, and now I can just walk out. And so we walked out pretty slowly, of the Narrows. I remember I think we were about probably less than 10 minutes from the trail, the Sinawama Trail, and we just like sat down and just pulled out a bunch of food. And we're like,
It's like having a
we
snack.
made it.
We did
We're
this
close
thing.
enough.
I don't think I could have moved like another step if I didn't eat something. I was really like,
Right.
it was the longest hike out of the Narrows ever. So one thing that was kind of crazy, when we were in Lower Imlay still, you can hear the Narrows getting close. But we started to hear it like there were still 2 potholes left, and they ended up being the like biggest potholes we had to get out of. So it was weird. We were like so close, but so far still.
Right.
We knew that it was just around the corner, but we still had like these 2 huge obstacles. And at this point, like Wes was super cold, and I was just trying to get us out of there. But I got out of the first pothole with like hooking, and it was probably like I was swimming around, kind of floundering, trying to like get my hook off my harness, and it was caught on my leg and stuff. And the lip was probably like 4 or 5 feet above the water, so I was like trying to lunge up and like get my hook in, and I was tired and finally got up, and then Wes would like hook the packs on my leg and I'd lift them up, and then he'd grab my leg and kind of shimmy up. But then the next pothole was like right after that, and we thought the last one was big, but the next one was probably like 6 feet up above the water. And I like swam across it, and almost all of the hook holes like on the lower sections of it were like blown out. So I was sitting there trying over and over again, just like floundering in the water, and the hook just wouldn't stick in anything. So finally I like swam back a little and like flung myself out of the water and just kind of like just managed to slam my hook down up on like one of the upper holes, and it finally held. And I think it was like such a relief. Like we both got to the top of that and we were like panting and just like, I don't know. It was like, oh my gosh, we just did that. Like,
Right.
like we still had like 4 rappels left, but it was like, yeah, we're out of here. You know, we can do the rest of this. So that was a scary, but also like, it was a good experience. Like it felt like a huge accomplishment that we, you know, at that point we knew we had made it. So
Had you guys experienced the canyons in low conditions before?
I hadn't ever seen Heaps in low conditions. But Imlay, yeah, we had both seen like where we had to hook out. I think it was different doing it at night.
Yeah.
And also in the cold and just after a super long day.
Right. I mean,
I think if we were fresh, it wouldn't have been as scary. But yeah.
because I've done the sneak route of Imlay twice when it was full and then once when it was empty. And like the trash compactor is a lot of work when it's full, but everything else is a lot of work when it's empty. Like either way, it's a big canyon. We lost our hooking kit on the second to last pothole, but we had a backup one, but they spent a lot of time looking for the one that they had dropped. And then we also had spent a lot of time because the group in front of us was slower. And so a couple of the guys on the trip, one guy in particular, started getting hypothermic at the last rappel and stuff. And we were just like, this is, yeah. And we went in like freaking September. So for you guys to go in November, I can't even imagine busting through ice. That's just, yeah, good for you.
Yeah, luckily there wasn't ice in the lower sections, but the water was definitely cold.
And you didn't have ice in Heaps, right?
Maybe a little at the top, but not on the water.
Okay, yeah, huh.
So
Interesting.
But you drop into the water and it just takes your breath away. And you're like trying to like breathe through it as you swim across the pothole to the other side. Like, get me out of here.
Right.
I want to be up that lip. So,
yeah, and that was in dry suits too. So yeah, I don't know.
The second time I went through Imlay full, I had a dry suit. And I rented it from Zion Adventure Company. And they gave me the 3 layers. They're like, wear 2 when you get there. If it's cold, put the other one on. If it's hot, take one off, right? And I'm just like kicked back in the potholes, like, this feels cozy. And my friends are like, hurry up, it's cold in here. I was like, you should get a dry suit. But then I've heard stories where they just get like a pinhole in the zipper area or something, and it's a complete failure. So
Yeah.
I'm scared of dry suits.
Yeah, they are a little bit scary. I mean, we took ours off and I was soaked to the bone underneath. I don't know. We'd been jumping quite a few of the rappels in Heaps, so I definitely was submerged, over my head multiple times. So it probably snuck in in my neck or something like that. But
Yeah.
I was sopping wet underneath, and just that thought, taking all those clothes off, I was like, I'm actually really glad I've got a wetsuit in this next canyon because I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
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 It was weird though, because we took our dry suits off at the end of Heaps and we're super wet. But I actually, like, other than my hands, I wasn't that cold. Like, at least, I don't know, through the last section of Heaps, it was probably the best I felt temperature-wise all day.
Interesting. It was like a sauna suit, like keeping you insulated.
Yeah, I was
You're
like
wet.
steaming underneath. Maybe because we were just moving so hard, like exerting so much energy, it was keeping us warm,
Right.
Because, I mean, our clothes were wet, but maybe we were wearing like fleece and stuff, which still insulates. So,
Right.
yeah, somehow we stayed warm.
So what will you guys do to prepare for the trifecta?
That's a great question. Well, we finished Jiahiad in 1920, and now that we think about it, we're like, we can see times where we could maybe go a little bit quicker there or here. We're maybe going to switch up the order on how we did it a little bit, just so we don't have to run up the West Rim Trail. Just some small things like that, and then we hope to bring on Tanner as well. He was an amazing support in this one, and he wants to train so we can have three of us be able to send
Yeah.
the trifecta. And then we want to be able to hit it at the perfect time of the year, so we'll start looking in the spring to see if the water levels are open, and then most importantly, if Kolob opens up, and that's just available. That's kind of just been the biggest thing that's holding us back.
Yeah, really it comes down to, like, when can we get Heaps and Imlay in the fullest conditions and Kolob just runnable,
Right. Crazy.
But when the stars align, we'll be doing it. So, and we have lots of months to prepare. We'll be running with our packs and running lots of canyons because that's what we do anyways. So
Right.
it'll be fun.
That's awesome. Any takeaways that you want to talk about?
So on the way down, Wes and I had this conversation. On our way down into Heaps, kind of like as we were jogging, sometimes we'd be like kind of chatting, and we talked about how oftentimes we're limited so much just by like our beliefs. How really like our bodies and just us, like we're capable of so much more than we think. And oftentimes like that requires you like really pushing yourself like out of your comfort zone and out of like that zone of like how much physical like pain or like exhaustion can I endure and how can I push through that. But yeah, I think a lot of this was actually, although it was very physically challenging and our bodies were tired, what really pulled us through in the end was like our mental game. So I think that's really cool. Like people are capable of so much more than they think they are. And even when you feel like you're on your last leg, like you can still give a little bit more.
I love that.
So yeah.
And I think we never mentioned this explicitly during the day, but I feel like there was kind of the rule that we were only talking positive throughout the day. I didn't hear either of us speak negative at all throughout the day, or worry or I don't know, frustration. It was more just purely focus on the positive, because if you even let any of that just doubt of what you're capable of in, it kind of just takes over so quickly. And so I don't know, we'd just be like running in silence, and one of us would be like, "You got this, man, you're doing such a great job, like keep it up." And it was really cool. It was a really cool experience to have that support throughout a really difficult time.
Yeah.
Be able to come out on the other ends just successful. So, and then throughout it, I felt a moment of like, oh, we're not gonna send this as fast as we thought we were, but I kind of was able to take a step back and be like, actually, we're doing something really awesome here, and this time is absolutely arbitrary and doesn't matter. It's just the experience itself that is what you can take away from it and what truly matters. So yeah, there was a lot of things we learned from it and a lot of growth that came from it, and I'm just excited to see what more the canyons can offer us, you know.
Right. Awesome. Well, I know that canyoneering makes me really hungry. What is your favorite canyon snack?
Well, actually, the funny thing is we basically didn't eat anything all day but Cliff Bars.
And turkey sticks and cheese and goose.
But like know. Not on that particular event, because that one doesn't count. On a regular canyon adventure, what's your favorite canyon snack?
I really like to take bagels and turkey and cheese, and I don't care how long they've been sitting in the sun. I make myself a turkey sandwich in the canyon.
Bagels make really great bread because they don't smash and get all like gooey and gross. So yeah, I like bagels or a ciabatta for sure.
I get a lot of hate for this, but I enjoy the mashed potato packets.
Oh my gosh, don't even.
It's like the flakes, you know, it's like the powder stuff. It's like 4 servings in this little thing.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It's like just the perfect 500 calories. And all you got to do is you open up the water bottle
cold.
and you just pour your water bottle in there, you mix it up, and it's so good. But everybody hates it because I eat it cold, yeah. So, sorry about that.
I mean, I love mashed potatoes, but yeah, like Braxton, I don't know about eating it cold. Huh. But
it just sounds like sadness in a bag.
I mean, everything tastes better outside, you know, like you're camping and you're like, oh, this tastes so good. And then you go home and you make it and you said, wow, that is absolutely awful. So maybe it's just that.
I'm going to try cold mashed potatoes next time I'm hiking. I don't know. I'm Irish. I love potatoes. Interesting.
It's efficient. It's all about the efficiency.
Right. Okay. How about your favorite after canyon beverage?
I think we're in the same boat here. We got it, and he's got it right there in his hands.
Ooh, I love yerba mate. That's like
yerba mate all the way.
If it's not kombucha and beer, I'm drinking yerba mate. I drink that a lot.
Before, during, and after mate.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have a picture of me and Heaps somewhere drinking a mate, actually. I like hauled it all the way through there.
Like on rappel.
Nice. That's awesome. Okay, what is an essential piece of gear that you carry in your pack?
Rope.
What kind of rope?
I always have, just for whatever reason, if I like stick a rope or something, or for like emergencies, I have a toggle in like a small bag with like a few hundred feet of 1/8" Amstel, and it barely weighs anything, so that like never leaves my bag. But that way, like if we were to stick one of our ropes in a canyon or something, we have options for rigging releasable.
That's smart. How about you, Wesley?
This always gives me comfort, but I always like having extra belay devices, whatever it is, even if it's just an 8. But I like to have multiple, like not just one, but like 2, because I have, you know, as one does, dropped them in a pothole, and you're swimming around in that, and you're like, wow, I am never going to find this again. And so, yeah, that was always one of the big things. Like, I need to have extras.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to drop in the cold water. You know?
Yeah, I usually have at least one, for sure. That's definitely great to have on hand. What has canyoneering brought to your life? Like, how has it changed it? How has it impacted you?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's been just the beauty. I really think it's unmatched. Like, being able to find such unique features in the rock where there's no people around in today's culture is impossible. And so that is found in canyons, and I absolutely crave it all the time. It is so good.
Yeah.
I agree with that a lot. I feel like, I don't know, there's so many different reasons that I keep coming back to canyoneering, but like one is definitely just the opportunity to experience like these incredible places that, like, you know, if you think about it, almost nobody really gets to see. Like, the community of people who actually like go into these places is very small. So it's a really cool opportunity. And I just feel so like free getting to be out and like exploring. I like the technical aspect, like all of the problem solving. I like the movement. Like, it can be tricky sometimes, especially like in canyons where you're stemming or down climbing. But yeah, it's just like so many fun challenges and like beauty all wrapped up into like one big beautiful package. So I love canyoneering. It's, my parents think it's like an addiction or something, which they're probably
It's
right.
such a healthy addiction, though. Like, you could be addicted to heroin, or you could be addicted to canyoneering, right? Like, which would they rather you do? Because I personally prefer canyons. Anyway. I agree. Like, when I first started, I was like, this is the place where only the bold, like the brave are bold enough to go, right? Like, it's such a beautiful place. It's amazing. All right. Well, do you have any safety advice for our listeners before we say goodbye?
I would say, just first off, if you're a beginner, go with people who know what they're doing. I think that's actually, not only is it important to keep you safe, but it's like one of the best parts of canyoneering is like getting to know new people and learn new things. I think the more that you can keep an open mind and like learn new techniques and like expand on your toolbox, that's really important. And then for, you know, people who aren't a beginner, just make sure to always like double check yourself. Don't like make the mistake of being overconfident and doing something that puts you at risk. Because even though we may think we have things all figured out, mistakes happen, and it's important to always go into, especially like more difficult challenges, with that mindset of like, I guess, preventing things that could go wrong.
I think you touched on it briefly, but I think it's, the risk is inevitable at times, and so it's being as prepared as you can for that risk. And so, like what we just did, we were wanting to go as light as possible. Then we kind of sat down and we thought, well, actually, there's a lot of things that it's imperative that we bring, right? And so we need to both have our ascending gear. We need to both have extra beaners and an extra rope, and just like it's there. You have to weigh the pros and cons, and I guess the cons are the risk of the canyon itself, but all of the pros should be all the preparation you do in advance. And I think that the best thing you can take from that is go in expecting the worst. And if you go in expecting the worst, then you should always be prepared, right?
Yeah, I like that, because I'm one that gets like super canyon anxiety. So I'm like, do we have this, you know? And like, people are like, don't worry about it. But I'm like, but if the thing happens, you want to at least be able to take care of yourself. So yeah, that's well said. I
like Wes said, like even though we were trying to like push it as close to that line as possible, there's things we would never skimp on. Like, we had plenty of pothole escape gear. We had like plans for if anything went wrong. We even were prepared to spend a night in a canyon if we had to. And even though honestly, like, you know, we didn't end up needing our pot shots, but like I wouldn't have not taken them. Or like, we didn't need to use emergency blankets and candles, but you know, like, I would make sure that I'm prepared with that stuff, because not having it would be much worse in a situation where you needed it than having to carry an extra few pounds.
Right. Well said. All right. Well, if neither one of you have anything else to add, I think the canyons are calling. We should probably go.
Let's go.
Let's do it.